Welcome in to Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports. I am your host, Stone Chills. We got a lot to discuss here on today's video. It is Wednesday, July 30th. The Bengals are currently practicing right now. And guess who is in town for the Cincinnati Bengals? Yep, you guessed it. Trey Hendrickson has made an appearance. He's not practicing yet with the team, but he is here present in Cincinnati. Made the trip up from Florida, which is where he has spent Bengals training camp up to this point. Also, some roster moves announced by Cincinnati a little bit earlier today. One of which is a little bit sad, I guess, sobering news as far as Zack Moss goes, and we'll spend some time talking about that on today's show as well. But before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already at youtube.com/BengalsTV. We are trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before August 7th, so just a little bit more than a week away before the Bengals' first preseason game. That certainly is exciting. Trying to get to that 20K mark, that certainly will be a significant milestone for us here at the channel. So help us out. If you haven't done so already, hit that sub button for me right now, youtube.com/BengalsTV. All right, so Trey Hendrickson is back in Cincinnati. As I mentioned, he is not participating yet with the team. He is in street clothes, but he is here as his holdout now has come to an end, and now he's not going to have to pay those $50,000 fines that he would get for missing each day of Bengals training camp. He's not participating, but he's here, so he's no longer subject to fines. We're going to take a look about some reporting that we have gotten here in recent days. Tony Pauline, of course, covers the NFL. This is what he had to say in regards to Trey Hendrickson, and then also we're going to talk about what Adam Schefter had to say around the corner as well. This is what Pauline wrote, saying, "There have been reports that Hendrickson is looking for 2 years guaranteed in his contract, while Cincinnati is only offering 1, yet sources tell me the pass rusher is looking for a deal that will include guarantees for 3 years, at which point he'll have been in the league for 11 seasons. Interestingly enough, I'm told there have been no recent face-to-face negotiations between the Bengals and Hendrickson or his team. There seems to be no sense of urgency coming from the Bengals front office, which is strange, as losing Hendrickson would set back the Cincinnati franchise on the field and in the locker room." Now Adam Schefter, pretty noteworthy what he had to say here on the Pat McAfee show yesterday on ESPN, saying the deal is in place, but there is a disagreement over the guaranteed money. The Bengals typically have not guaranteed full deals. They did it for Joe Burrow. They essentially did it for Jamar Chase. They're not willing to do it for Trey Hendrickson. The years and the average are not issues right now. The whole issues is over guaranteed money. I have my thoughts on that around the corner. But when will a Trey Hendrickson deal get done? Let me know in the pinned comment of today's show. When do you think this is going to get done? Now I'm kind of optimistic that it will get done at some point. When? I don't know. We will find out. Get that date for me down in the comment section right now. All right, so Adam Schefter is predicting that this is going to be a 3-year deal. Pat McAfee straight up asked him how long he thinks this deal will be. There was rumors that, it was only going to be perhaps a 2-year deal. I don't think Hendrickson is willing to do just a 2-year deal. I think he's looking for a 3-year deal as well. I agree with Adam Schefter. The dispute right now is Trey wants more guarantees in year 2. So year 1 of the deal, the Bengals reportedly are offering those guarantees. He wants more in year 2, more security down the line for Trey Hendrickson. And of course, as Schefter pointed out in that quote, the Bengals typically don't do that, right? They did it with Jamar Chase, did it with Joe Burrow. They're hesitant here to do it with Trey Hendrickson. And Pat McAfee also was like, okay, how far apart are we here as far as what these guarantees are? And Schefter ultimately ended up saying just double-digit millions, but you first said between $6 to $10 million apart as far as guarantees go, which obviously is a significant amount of change when you're talking about Trey Hendrickson and his contract. Now, this still could be very slow to get this done. I think it's very positive that he is here in Cincinnati with the team now, and he's no longer in Florida, but I think now, honestly, it kind of becomes more of a distraction than what it was last week when he was down in Florida, right? Because now he's going to be out there at practice every day. The cameras are going to see him at practice every day, and he's not going to be practicing. And it's kind of going to be those vibes that we had from Jamar Chase's situation last offseason, or last training camp, I should say. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Overall, I do think it's positive news, but nothing is certain yet when you're talking about Trey Hendrickson and his contract situation for the Cincinnati Bengals. Only time will tell where this thing goes, but it's good to hear that the deal basically is in place. We will see if the Bengals can budge when it comes to the guaranteed money. And before we move on, I do want to make one more point. If you're Trey Hendrickson, there's no real reason to budge right now, right? Because you've made such a big deal of this whole situation. And, this really doesn't align with his personality, I don't think. I don't think he's comfortable acting the way that he has. But at the end of the day, if he just says, oh, you know what, never mind, I'll just sign this and move on, well, then why did you do this to begin with? So I still think there could be a situation where this goes on a little bit longer. As we mentioned, he wants more in those guarantees into year 2 of the contract. But ultimately, I am confident now that this will get done before week 1. We'll continue with our show here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that these Bengals T-shirt hoodies are out there on sale. You can go get them. Chatsports.com/Bengals Hoodie T-Shirt / really cool. You can wear them for training camp if you're heading out to a training camp practice. Plenty of public ones that you can attend. It's got the hood, but it's very light. Still quality material, though. Really cool as well. Best part about it, they're on sale over at Fanatics. So go check those out. We'll put that link in the comment section in the description of today's show. All right, let's talk Zack Moss here. This is kind of unfortunate news. The Bengals are releasing Zack Moss, and if you remember last season, he suffered a very serious neck injury. We really didn't know how serious the injury was, but it actually was broken in several parts of his neck, and that caused him to miss the majority of last season. Obviously, it was a good thing for Chase Brown because then he was the guy, and then he flourished, and unfortunately for Moss, people kind of forgot about him. But Zack Moss is an unbelievable human being and an unbelievable player, and that it kind of has flown under the radar here. He's a super tough dude as well. We didn't know that Zack Moss didn't know that he was playing through a broken neck. There was a game against the Philadelphia Eagles where he lost feelings in his fingers, and he was basically playing with 7 fingers. By the way, Paul Dehner Jr. has a great piece up on The Athletic. Go check that out if you have not done so already. That was put out yesterday, and then ultimately today, Moss ends up getting released. But he didn't even know. He just knew he had neck soreness and really wasn't telling people. And then all of a sudden they looked at it, and it was like, oh, wow, your neck is broken. And that is a very, very serious injury, of course, as well. So the Bengals had placed him on the NFI list going into training camp, and that was because not anything to do with the neck, but it was the fact that he wasn't in football shape because he really could just sit on the couch for a lot of this offseason because this was a very, very serious injury. He mulled retirement. He talked with Zach Taylor about potentially retiring. He's very close with his family, has 2 children, a wife as well, and they ultimately decided he was going to try to come back and play football. Bengals, of course, did restructure his contract, but I think at this point the Bengals were like, he's really far from being a guy that can go out there and be productive on the football field. And they're kind of doing him a favor, I think, releasing him at this point as opposed to, making him go throughout the entirety of, training camp and the preseason, then releasing him as well. So he still wants to play football, and we'll see if ultimately that can happen for Zack Moss. But this is a guy that played with a broken arm in Indianapolis. He's one of the toughest guys in the NFL, and he's a great human being as well. Really hope he lands on his feet. But the Bengals are releasing Zack Moss, and it doesn't really feel like a situation in which they will bring him back later on. Obviously this time of year, sometimes there's roster gymnastics. A player gets released and then he's brought back. Doesn't really feel like that is the vibe here with Zack Moss. So the running back room looks a little bit different. Of course, you signed Samaje Perine this offseason in free agency. There were some questions about, okay, is he definitely going to make this team? Well, I think now his odds certainly look a lot better. Chase Brown is your guy, that running back one. I still think he's going to become a household name this year and potentially be a superstar for this football team. But what's it look like beyond him? He's a running back, right? Injuries happen. Who can be that guy to step up? You've got the veteran Samaje Perine and your rookie out of Texas, Taj Brooks. Those are now your main 3 guys in the Bengals running back room. Show some love to Zack Moss. He's a gutsy guy, played through a lot, and unfortunately, I think the Bengals just are sitting there looking at the neck injury saying, yeah, it's kind of a dicey situation. We are going to release him. But show your love for Zack Moss. Spam those 31s for me in the comment section of today's show. All right, more on some roster news here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Undrafted free agent center Seth McLaughlin, who of course played at Alabama before transferring to Ohio State to play his last season of college football. He passed his physical and he is cleared to practice. And this is a guy that was the best center in college football before he popped his Achilles, and he would have been the second center drafted probably as well if he had not suffered that Achilles injury. So this is a guy that's technically a UDFA, but he is far from a UDFA, and I think he's a guy that could make this Bengals team. Will it be this year? We'll see. But if he's a guy that's on the practice squad, I think he will get scooped up. So Seth McLaughlin being out there ready to go and practice is very noteworthy, and I'm very interested to see what happens with McLaughlin. You've got the center position as far as your starter down with Ted Karras, but could McLaughlin be a guy that can move out to guard? Could he be a guy that could perhaps back up Ted Karras and make this football team? We will see, but that is very positive news that he is going to be all right and that he is going to practice, and I'm very excited to monitor his situation. Do want to talk Lucas Patrick as well. At the beginning, I believe it was the first or second training camp practice, Lucas Patrick left with that lower leg injury. He is out and practicing today with the football team. That is certainly positive. Hasn't gotten any reps with the ones yet. I think a lot of people thought he could be the guy to come in and start at right guard. That has been Cody Ford getting all of those reps so far in training camp, but Lucas Patrick is back out with the football team today. We will see if ultimately he gets more reps with the ones. And also do want to talk about Charlie Jones. Apparently Charlie Jones has looked really good too, and you've heard the reports about Burton as well. Obviously the Bengals know what they have in Higgins and Chase. Man, if Charlie Jones can step out and do an incredible job this year, that would be incredible. The injuries have been the issue. He actually had a couple of surgeries this offseason for a sports hernia. And apparently he says he feels the best he has since being drafted into the NFL, and apparently he's looked really good as well. So if Charlie Jones can be a guy that can stay healthy and also be a good wide receiver for you, look out. You might just have the best wide receiver room in the National Football League, and you might have that anyway, even without Charlie Jones. Make sure you give me a follow over on Twitter if you haven't done so already, at StoneShields _. You'll find most of our Bengals Breakdown content on my Twitter page. Also, all kinds of reports, highlights from the team as well. So help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter.